what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Geeks from the Multiverse. I am Matt. With me is John.
What up, y'all? As always.
And Hank, of course. He's always here with us. He's our silent mascot. Doesn't really say very much, but he is here with us, too.
You know, and if he really could talk, I mean, I really don't know what he would sound like, but
I'm sure he'd have a lot to say.
I think he would. And you know what? I think he would also appreciate, what we're actually doing today, since, it's always our passion to talk about Marvel. So go ahead, Matt, because
you know what? He is kind of the mean one, so I think he would be kind of angry. But anyways, that's me. But today we're going to be talking about, Phase 5 of the Marvel MCU and kind of what's beyond that too. So we're talking about Phase 5 and 6 and potentially, what is going to occur. Obviously, we don't know very much beyond Ant-Man and maybe Guardians at this point, but we're going to get into that. But first, we're going to do our very final round of Superfight, which we kind of changed things up for this round, where before we were picking, our 3 cards for our characters and our powers and weaknesses. This time, we're not getting a choice. We're getting 1 card for each. And this is what we got. 1 card, no choices. We are running with what we got. And hopefully it's not a dud this week, John.
Matt, the thing is, though, is that our previous matches, the very first one versus until now, you and I have both won at least one, but we've had now 2 draws.
2 draws.
And now we have to, no matter what.
Somebody has to win this fight.
Why don't we get into it? Since you know what, since you were King Geek of the Week last time, I figured you go ahead first, and then I'll say mine afterwards.
All right, so I'm gonna turn my card over. All right, I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, I don't know.
Well, hold on. Well, what is it? Because we need to know.
Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, now granted, if I'm basing it off the character itself, I'm gonna say that if she is also like Frankenstein, where she's incredibly probably strong and everything else, you could have some advantages. We'll see.
Yeah.
Because now, granted, if just like Frankenstein, you could have your head pop off and do other things like limbs and everything else. So we'll see.
We'll see.
How
We'll see.
this works.
We don't know the weaknesses yet, so
let's here we go. Ooh, okay. Definitely. I don't know. This is an I don't know. Okay. An Apache warrior.
So like an Indian.
Yes, but
well, let's be PC, I guess. Native American.
Correct. That is the most correct term. So Native American, yes, but back in the day.
Yes.
So we'll say Revolutionary War, sure, or we'll say during that time frame, right? So it just depends, right? Because I don't, unfortunately, I am not a Native American expert on where they originated from, like when it came to like the Apache tribe or the Iroquois or any one of them. Like I remember in school, but like not enough to like know where they're located. So I don't know the advantages this particular tribe might have. So but go ahead.
We have in Apache warrior, so just 1.
Well, yes, just like you have 1 Bride of Frankenstein.
Well, I just wanted to clarify. It wasn't like Apache warriors or.
No, I know, just Apache warrior.
Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah,
okay.
So powers and weaknesses. I will do at least my first one.
Why don't you do both?
I can do both.
Well,
That's
then
fine.
start with your first one.
All right, so super endurance, John.
Wonderful.
So apparently I don't get tired.
Great.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
That's great.
And
hold on, there we go.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
You know what? For Bride of Frankenstein having super endurance also uses the Force.
Wow. Okay. All right. Here we go. Believe in the cards. Just like Yu-Gi-Oh! Believe in the cards.
No.
All right, here we go. Oh, God.
We have like a third eye or something?
No, this is terrible. This is an absolutely terrible card. I don't know why. Do you remember the Keanu Reeves and was it Sandra Bullock? There, like, what was that movie? Like, they were in a bus.
Speed.
Speed. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Explodes if they stop moving.
Oh, that's perfect.
No,
that's absolutely
terrible.
perfect.
That's terrible. Hold on. Oh! Wait a minute. I don't know. This might be interesting. And I know I'm not and I'm going to preface this. I'm not a Star Trek fan. Okay, I haven't really watched it, but I know I need to.
Oh, yeah, I mean, eventually we're going to talk about it. So
we're going to talk about it. Sorry. So this one is half Vulcan.
I don't know how that helps you in a speeding bus.
Buddy, I don't. Again, I don't know what the race of Vulcans can do per se. I mean, they're smart, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know about.
They're very logical. So it's sort of, if you think of Drax in the way that he thinks, it's less emotional thinking and it's more science and logic. But they, a lot of Vulcans train with science and it's more education. But you can, they do this thing that's called a mind meld, where you can literally, they meld their mind with somebody else's to kind of share memories.
Which, in this case, probably isn't going to help in this case.
Probably not going to help. Because I think immediately this fight ends when I stop the bus.
As long as you can...
I use the Force, bud.
I know, that's the problem. Like I said, I really got the crappy end of the stick on this one this time because, having an Apache warrior, having, being half Vulcan and explodes if I stop moving. Like, the problem with most... Well, actually, I guess in this case, I mean, a lot of... Well, hold on. Okay. So, right, Native Americans, okay, normally, right, they usually travel on horseback, if I'm not mistaken. Now, granted, they do their if I'm not mistaken, their tactics, right? They're usually on a horse, and they usually go around in circles on a horse. Might be, using some bow and arrows, might be doing all that. Now, I don't think there's a point to this, but I mean, if he kept moving, he or she, I don't know, right? And most of the time, I guess it would be males, but not, judging of who it is. But, if they kept going around in circles on this horse and realized that they can't stop moving because they will literally explode, my only thing is, though, is like, unless there was a way to like if he could use like fire or something like that, because I know Frankenstein, okay, which it would probably be the same for the Bride of Frankenstein, like he was afraid of fire. Now, granted, if he had a flame-tipped arrow and had a few of those, he might have an advantage as long as he's not, like if he just stops, then he's dead. But if he kept moving and he kept doing that, maybe. But it also depends. Like, again, this is why it stinks, because there's not a location card. Because we can make up a scenario,
right? And potentially, I mean, obviously, if you take the same logic and you say, okay, well, if you have an Apache warrior and it's, it's back in that time era, yes, obviously, it might not be a bus, but maybe it's a horse that has that same type of bomb contraption, where if it stops moving, but you have to move above a certain speed.
Well, see, see, that's the part of this that we don't know. We don't know exactly how, if I have to.
But if it's saying like speed,
like,
then
okay, if it's like the movie Speed, if I'm not mistaken, in the movie you had to go more than 40 miles, or no, it was 60 miles, right?
You couldn't go under 50 miles an hour.
50. So, but again, granted, most horses aren't. If we're basing it off of speed, sure, then yes, it would be really hard, because a horse typically doesn't go 50 miles an hour.
No, but if you base it on the average speed of a horse, you would have to continually go that speed.
Right, and you'd have to keep going in circles.
And obviously, granted, I don't know a whole lot about the Bride of Frankenstein, but if it's similar in character to Frankenstein, using the Force and having super endurance could mean that I wouldn't have to stop using the Force. I could continually do what I need to do. And if you were coming at me, there are things that I can do to protect myself. And for one, like Frankenstein was afraid of a lot of different things.
Well, true, but I know, like, if we're basing it off of movies, then yes, fire was a big one. Then it was a big one for that reason. But I will mention this, okay? So if let's say that the Apache warrior was, if it was continuing to move. Now, granted, Frankenstein was not a fast moving monster at all. Like it's he was very slow. He didn't have a whole lot.
He was also a lot bigger than Bride of Frankenstein was.
Well, okay, so I don't, but again, I don't know how big she is versus him, because Frankenstein, if I'm not mistaken, was probably what, like 7 feet, maybe.
He was a big dude.
Like,
and from what I remember, she was not like she might have been tall, but she was slender. From what I remember.
True. So I mean, granted, I'm not saying she's going to be like, fat like the Flash, like in the regards of like going, supersonic speed, but it, maybe enough to like, yes, not like, like and only moving like,
right,
2 steps every.
But the thing is, like, I don't necessarily have to move. All you have to do is, I mean, you don't even have to come near me, because knowing what I know from Star Wars, all I have to do is stop you from moving, and I could easily, with the Force, pick you and your horse up, and you've instantly stopped moving.
Unless the horse kept moving. Meaning, like, we're still running. Now, granted, I understand that's like a really long shot that would be the case, but
you would seriously have to. I mean, yes, your horse would still be maybe kicking like it was moving, but if I was petrified that you were going to hurt me, I would probably crush you like a tin can.
True.
And you would explode into basically a million pieces. Anyways.
Now, keep in mind, okay, Frankenstein. Now, granted, I don't know if the Bride of Frankenstein was smart, but I know Frankenstein was not a genius.
Like, well, it doesn't take a genius to protect yourself. If I'm worried about you killing me,
no, I understand
it's
that.
Protection.
No, but I understand that. But what I'm saying is let's say, fine, you did that, but let's say I had a flame-tipped arrow, okay?
It still wouldn't matter. You're coming at me with a fire-tipped arrow. I'm protecting myself.
Wait. Just let me finish.
You keep arguing with me, but instantly all I have to do is pick you up and you stop moving, bro.
But again, I understand this. But if we're talking about location, this is where it can come important here.
This is why we have draws all the time, bro.
Because of me. No.
Because you keep arguing and the fight's over.
No, it's not over yet, because we haven't gotten to that point yet, because you kept talking and I haven't even finished what I was going to say. So let me finish before you keep going on with your thing.
2 hours later.
Oh, get out of here. So if, let's say, okay, if we're based at, okay, let's say we're in an open field. Okay, let's say we're in a giant, I don't know, cornfield, or like really tall grass. Okay. Now, mind you, if, like I've just mentioned, that if let's say I had a flame-tipped arrow, and all I had to do was just pull it back and just
use the Force.
You're gonna use the Force on an arrow that you may or may not see coming. Granted,
I can use the Force to sense you.
You're right. You could do that, but it also depends on how quick you would have to be in that moment, because not everything, like, yes, you theoretically, if you wanted to be like Yoda, or you could be like, let's say Kylo Ren, and like, figure out.
I mean, essentially that's what I would be if I use the Force. It doesn't say how knowledgeable, but it says I use the Force, right, so I have to be knowledgeable in how I'm using it. So I'd have to know that you and I were fighting. Even if you were trying to hunt me, I would have to be one with the Force to be able to use it. So I would have to be somewhat present in my surroundings. It's not like a Spider-Man, like I have a spider sense, like, oh, there's a fire-tipped arrow coming. But
no,
I would be able to sense, like,
yes,
there's something coming for me. And like I said before, knowing what I know of the character, at least Frankenstein, maybe not Bride of Frankenstein, but if they're similar in nature, he only really attacked people because he was afraid and was basically protecting himself.
Fine. You know what?
And let me finish. You talked, so let me finish.
Fine.
I would like to give
you some, but it's
in certain moments, and even with Vader, you saw this, right?
Mm-hmm.
In certain moments, especially I think in episode 3, where he finds out that Padme is dead, and
right, and then
he screams like that weird no, like it's really weird scene, but like this kind of wave comes out of him, and you start seeing things in that room start crushing around him.
Okay,
and so in certain moments, like if I was that fearful that something around me, and maybe we are in tall grass that's over my head and I can't see you, I'm gonna try to reach out so that I can protect myself in any way that I can.
So I was gonna tell you this. See, if you allowed me to talk, I was gonna tell you that yes, fine. I will humbly, I say this as a keyword here. I will allow for this defeat. I'm gonna allow.
You're gonna allow.
You know why? Because if I kept arguing with you, we're gonna be here for another 3 hours, and I already know this.
I don't even think you have a leg to stand on.
But see, fine. Then if you don't think so, then whatever. Then you know what? Then maybe at the end of the day, maybe we should have our hopefully listeners, maybe chime in and maybe we can have something. But that's just
if I had anything other than uses the Force, you probably would have been better off. But the fact that she uses the Force changes the game, because that you have a fear does something really different for people. And so you can have all the training that you want to have, and even in battle scenarios in the military.
Oh, here we go, military.
No, I'm throwing it out there as kind of the last thought. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there, like fear does something different even if you have the training. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So she can have all the training, but the instant that she fears for her life, and Bride of Frankenstein, you know what? Like, they're probably dumb as rocks. And so they're not going to be able to think beyond their capability. So she's going to probably want to absolutely destroy everything. And you know what? If we're in a field of tall grass, you can probably say goodbye to that tall grass because it's gone too.
All right, fine. Look, we've already established this. All right. Again, you know what? You win. Okay? I give up. I'm done. All right. So there you go. Mr. King Geek of the Week. All right. Go ahead and do your applause.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'll be here all week. So even Bucky.
Hey, don't bring my dog into this.
Even he agrees.
He's
like, King Geek of the He wanted to come.
Don't you dare bring my dog into this match.
He wanted to come lay on the King Geek of the ultimate King Geek of the Week.
You know what? I don't want to hear this. You know what, guys? I'm going to tell you. Yes, Bucky is a corgi. He's my wife's and my dog, and I love him, but he's stubborn. And yes, and right now he's hanging out with Matt right now, and yes, he's.
It's all right. I get it. No, and you wanted to be at the winner's circle.
Oh, whatever. Okay, you know what? Let's move on.
All right. So we got Marvel Phase 5. This is the last part of our series of Marvel, and John, there's a lot that is on the horizon for Phase 5.
So Phase 5 is I can't even begin to start talking about this, but Phase 5 and 6, because this is really what we're going to be talking about. I mean, we got so many new movies, so many new TV shows, and then the fact that, we're basically in Phase 6 going to have this ultimate battle, just in, Phase 3, where the whole Infinity War and Endgame and all this other stuff kind of comes into play, but with new, characters that we've now seen in Phase 4, and then hopefully moving into now Phase 5 and so on and so forth. So, when Matt and I talk about this, the one thing that we're going to mention is we're going to mention all the TV shows, we're going to mention all the movies, but the problem is because we don't know what is going on with all these stuff, like all these movies and TV shows, the biggest thing that we can do is just kind of give you some like maybe insight on certain things. We're not going to go through everything because again, there's so many articles, there's so many things going on that we don't actually know, what the MCU is really going to do.
Right.
And, unfortunately, one of the things we will be talking about is, there's now been a couple of recasts where, we've already been used to some of these characters and now we're already going to be changing them up again. And the problem is with that is that it it kind of almost goes down the path of DC, which I'm praying that is not going to be the case because if the MCU still wants to be around and still wants to be the king of, superhero movies, they really need to focus on, getting these characters built and continuing their stories and hopefully with the right, actors and actresses because if not, they're really going to just pull a DC. And I'm telling you, that's going to be a terrible day when that happens.
Yeah. So a lot of the projects as far as movies for Phase 5, we've already seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It's already out. It's the only one that's been out so far. Although I do believe early May is when Guardians comes out.
What's funny about, I'm not going to try to go into like too much, is that with this movie, it's actually the first time where I kind of wish they would have brought this into like Phase 3 because this is also when they introduced Adam Warlock, who in the original comics was actually a big part of the whole Infinity War, series as itself, and it kind of almost defeats the purpose of bringing him in now because there's nothing that can really correlate to really what's going on right now, and that's the sad part where I wish they would have done that in Phase 3 and not so much now.
Yeah. So, like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, that one, I believe, early May, it comes out. And Thunderbolts, I don't know if that has a time right now.
I think it's still to be determined. I
Yeah.
didn't think they have like an exact date.
The Marvels, which already does have a trailer. I don't think it has a date yet, but it does have a teaser.
I have seen it, but yes.
Captain America: New World Order.
Does that actually have a trailer, or does that not?
I don't believe the rest of these have trailers, to be honest.
Okay. Oh, I know a majority of them don't because they're still under development and they're still trying to work out some things that they've been trying to do. But
yeah, and some of these some of these you probably won't see them in until 2024, 2025.
Yeah,
you won't see them for a little bit. And then the last movie for Phase 5 is Blade.
So I will say with Blade though, I am looking forward to seeing because I know Matt and I have talked about this, but some of the other phases have mentioned already possible talks about the Midnight Suns, which again, if you don't know what that is, you can always look it up. But basically, it's a group of really superheroes, anti-heroes, I guess if you want to call them. They're more like creatures of the night, I guess if you want to say. So they're like Blade being like half vampire, half human. Moon Knight being a mystical kind of being. All these other ones that come into play. They're all usually mystical or some kind of creature like or something like that. So like Werewolf by Night was another one that might be in this movie or like maybe a TV show. Again, that has not actually haven't been confirmed or hasn't been
Right.
released or anything. But those are some things that when Matt and I talk about, we might maybe it depends. Talk about maybe certain theories. I mean, that's a good theory. I would hope that they would want to do that at some point.
Well, and the theory for that for Blade, as far as that one is, it's supposed to have Dracula.
Right, and I mean, in that, well, technically, if we're really gonna go,
and not like the weird Bram Stoker's like Dracula, like the Marvel.
No, right, but
character of Dracula.
Technically, Morbius should be in it though.
And I'm sure he probably will, but I believe the rumor is Dracula.
Well, and that's fine, but I would like if you really wanted to like tie those characters, then Morbius would be a great fit, and that's why I would hope that Sony doesn't want to screw up the relationship with Disney so far, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, going into now that we're kind of talking about Blade, that movie's been delayed. You know what I mean? It was supposed to come out way earlier than what it was scheduled to now, but
when was it? I thought was it supposed to be this year originally?
It was supposed to start filming in June, I believe is what they were saying. But there was a problem with the script, and then the director was also having issues like with the producers and the studio and everything. But the rumor for the script was that the entire script, like the entirety of the whole script for the movie, only had 2 action scenes for the whole movie, which begs the question: what do they do for the other like hour and 50 minutes of the movie if there are only 2 action scenes in the movie? Are they talking?
And so, because the problem with Blade is like, you know, even in the original, like, it was like late '90s, early 2000s when like the original like couple Blade movies that came out, and actually, little fun fact, because of Blade in those movies, that's actually how the MCU was able to become what they are. Because most people don't think about that, but if that movie didn't actually do so well, the MCU wouldn't exist. So keep that in mind when you appreciate what has actually came out, because this is why Blade, especially now. I mean, granted, we can't have Wesley Snipes play Blade again, but Marasha, I think Ali is his name. The guy who's actually cast to be Blade. I think he's a great fit, and I think he would do really well. And I think that one trailer from, or the mid credit scene from Eternals with Black Knight and him kind of talking for a second. Like it really, like, I'm more interested to even learn more about Blade, and hopefully with what's going to happen with him more. But I think you're right when it comes to the fighting scenes. Like it definitely needs to have
And it's
more
not
action.
it's not just fighting. It's the action scenes in general. There was only 2 that were written into the script, which that could be a chase scene or
Yeah,
any type of action.
but it better not be just talking, because that's not who Blade is.
Yeah, and you're talking, most Marvel movies are not just 2 hours.
No, I mean, we're talking. This one's probably, if I'm gonna take a wild guess, I'm gonna say this movie's probably like 2.5.
I would at least say 2.5. So you're talking maybe an action scene is maybe what, 10, 15 minutes, if that?
Well, with Blade though, I mean, like, and this, like, he's not an emotional being. Like he's very just like, he's like, he just kind of talks here and there, but he's like, I want to do more action than
Right.
speak the entire time.
And you have a movie with with very little action scenes. You're basically getting a Shakespearean movie, is what you're getting.
And no offense, who the hell wants that?
No, nobody wants that. But they do have a new director, and I actually don't know who he is. I know that he is the director for Lovecraft Country, which I've never seen that.
I don't even know what that is.
I think it's a show.
Oh, it's a show. Well, hold on. You know what? While you keep talking,
I believe it's a show, but he is set to direct a movie, and he has already brought on a new script writer that has penned a few things, and I thought I wrote it down, but I guess I didn't. Oh, I did. Michael Starbury, who I guess has some kind of an award for a couple of things that he wrote scripts for. So they do have a new script writer and they have a new director. So from what I understand, the movie is back into its full,
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we talking about Blade?
Yeah, Blade is back into kind of its full
extent.
Production planning and everything.
I just did look it up. Lovecraft. So it's Lovecraft Country, not County. So it is a TV show, and I guess it's based in the 1950s. It only ran for one season, because I don't see any. Yeah, it was one season. It was only 10 episodes. It was actually back during the COVID time frame. It was in 2020. But it's funny, who was also in that, which we should talk about in a second. The guy who's also in it is Jonathan Majors.
Oh, look at that. So yes, I think Blade being kind of one of my. He's ultimately for Marvel. Ultimately one of my favorite characters in Marvel. So I am definitely looking forward to seeing what they can do with this movie. Obviously, yes, it has to have more action scenes than 2.
Yeah.
But I do believe from what they were talking, plot-wise, which we don't, again, Marvel never reveals anything. And if you follow the rumors, 99% of them are never true.
Well,
But they do say that the movie is going to be set in a much earlier time frame than the older Blade movies.
So then my question is just like with Werewolf by Night, because that was based, if I don't, was that modern day or was that probably more like earlier 1900s? Because I don't know when that movie actually really.
Don't know the time frame, but it was in black and white. So
I mean, that was just more for effects. But I figured if they're probably, I'm not saying it's going to be a black and white movie, but I'm wondering if that's going to be in the same time frame as that movie took place, because
I'm guessing they might do time jumps. Like you might see some story from maybe a majority of the movie will be showing kind of what happened, and then you might get some present day stuff to kind of bring them into.
Well, then it would just be like Captain Marvel, right? Because I mean, back in the 90s, I mean, and then jumping all the way to the 2010s at that time,
It makes sense. I mean, it doesn't age or anything, so
yeah, and so I mean that would make sense. But I actually, since I know we're probably gonna have to move forward from this, but
yes.
did you want to talk about Mr. Majors, or did you want to talk about some other?
We can talk about Mr. Majors. So, if you follow any Marvel news, you know that probably Jonathan Majors, who played Kang, and He Who Remains in the Loki series.
Yep.
Which is sort of the same character. Basically, our variants of Kang. Jonathan Majors has been going through some legal issues as of late, and even though the legal issues that he's facing, he's been, I believe, he's been actually innocent of.
So is it like a Johnny Depp kind of situation, or are we talking about something different?
From what I understand, he got a not guilty, but, and I'll say but,
Well,
from what I've been reading when I researched all of this, there has been more accusations coming forward from others.
Oh, so this is almost turning into, like, unfortunately, like a Bill Cosby.
So it's becoming a kind of a bigger thing. So he had two other movie projects, and I don't know if they were movies or shows or what have you, but he had two other projects that he was involved with that have already dropped him.
Well, right, as of recently, but I mean, my question though is like, was it movies and let's say TV shows from like back in the day that people were now mentioning like, hey, this is what happened on this particular show or this movie at that time that is now coming to light because of this?
No, these were brand new projects that he was set to star in.
No, what I mean is like the accusations of what was going on with his legal issue. Was it because of something in the past?
I believe it was something in the past.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
They're whatever they are. They're new accusations that people are bringing forth, saying that like, yes, he also did this to me.
So in the problem, and we all know this with like major corporations like Disney and your bigger studios like that. I mean, the issue is once once someone is accused of something or has allegations or again, it's all innocent until proven guilty kind of a concept, but it makes it harder for them to want to keep them on if even if these let's say the allegations were proven not guilty, right? it it's still like, and this is why I hate this in so many different levels, because I'm only going to bring up Johnny Depp a little bit, but like he was about to do Pirates of the Caribbean, like the newer like series of it, and then he was dropped because of that whole legal case. And then granted he had to, they like, hey, whatever, but like he was tormented for so long that it made it harder for him to become, or like to at least probably even now get any more like movies and opportunities where this is kind of be. I'm not saying it's going to be like that, but it could have the possibility of the same thing where it's going to be harder for him to possibly get movies or TV shows or even Disney wanting to keep him around.
I think it could be an attitude thing too. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, I obviously I don't know him personally. Like, it's not like, hey, we hang out every Friday. Like I don't know him personally, so it's not like I can comment on his attitude. But like from obviously the research and the things that I'm reading, the attitude that he has shown his talent agency and the publicist company that he worked with, and Marvel in itself is, and these other projects, that's why he lost these other projects, is because of the attitude. And the talent agency that was working with him have dropped him as a client, and the publicist company.
So my thing, and this is where I'm gonna look at. So with Jonathan Majors, right? I mean, granted, he's kind of a newer actor that's come on the scene in the last, I would say, few years, of course. And he's been in some major roles, which is nice. But like you look at, for example, Robert Downey Jr., right? I mean, granted, this man's been in like movies from like the '80s, the '90s, and so forth, but he had his own issues, and of course, he came out of it and whatever. And he also, because he did Iron Man, he was so big to another degree that, you know, the problem. This is why I'm going to say it like this: is that when you look at RDJ and you look at Jonathan Majors, right? Because they're both, Jonathan Majors is trying to make a name. RDJ was already a big name and already a household name. He understood what he lost, and then when he gained it back, he understood his like humility, his humbleness towards, what he was doing. The problem is, and I hate saying this, but most actors, like especially, it's like greed, right? You if you get like some sort of money coming your way, you change as a person. And so
Right.
with him, because he was getting so big, it was like you're right. I feel like his attitude might have changed his perspective on, certain roles and certain things that he wanted to do and get his name out there. So like another movie that he just did and recently was Creed, right? And that was like again, Creed is another prime example of course like '80s movies and then bringing now bigger, names like Michael B. Jordan and so forth like that. But it it drives me nuts when you look at these actors that are really talented and they get so big and then all of a sudden they like you said they have this like ego boost slash change in their mentality of how they do movies and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, you know what, maybe I will do this movie, maybe I won't do this movie, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's it's annoying when, especially like him, because he was honestly, when it came to like King and like He Who Remains, like he did a good job. Like he did,
And he was playing a pivotal character. I mean, he has a whole
yeah,
movie,
like literally right. And
Avengers
yeah,
Kang Dynasty.
right? And he was
Right.
in the main role. So like the fact that you're trying to give that up, because you will make your name because of a household name because of that. I'm not saying, for example, that movie. Again, I'm not gonna predict the future here, but if if that movie actually did better than Endgame, like for sales wise, okay, that you would be crazy to not want to continue, the path that you were already on. And that like I said, with Endgame being the second best movie of all time, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be up to that level, but
Yeah.
it should definitely like make them think like, hey, you're in a household name. You don't want to give this up. This is a definitely something you want to be a part of and not like throw it all away because of one thing.
So, I mean, at this point, he has not been recast or anything. He is still, as far as today, he is still going to be Kang. But I think like what's important is, Phase 5 is really like the Phase 1 and 2. It's kind of those two combined,
Right.
and Kang is not going to be in every single Phase 5 project. So you may not even see him for a while, but if he is recast, the person that is rumored, and again, it's just a rumor because he has not been removed as Kang, is Damson Idris, who's from Snowfall and Black Mirror.
Right. And now, with that being said, if because of the whole multiverse saga, so the phase four, you could have, like, for example, like John Krasinski, play Mr. Fantastic, and then you could have someone totally random, like, play him again, as a different variant. So that it could be a good concept. But again, MCU has to do a good job on how they can transfer that and
Right.
make sure it goes into the story the correct way. Because the issue was, especially when Matt and I were looking at this, is like you look at the new movie Ant-Man, right, with Quantumania, like there's a statue of him, of his face and everything. It looks just like, Jonathan Majors. So it's really hard to all of a sudden change that to whoever the new actor is to make it look like him as the real Kang.
Yeah, I mean, you have to literally go back to Loki and CGI the statue in Loki to for the new person.
What? Oh, you're right. It wasn't Loki. My bad. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, you would literally have to go back to Loki, change the statue, CGI the new actor over that face, and change pretty much everything.
Well, and I'm not going to try to spoil it, but even that mid-credit scene when when he sees Loki, or when Loki sees him, with Owen Wilson or whatever, and he's like dressed up in, I don't know what time period. I think it was like 1800s or whatever, and him, like looking like that. I mean, then you'd also have to go even back to that particular scene too.
Well, the one in Ant-Man where you have pretty much like a million of them.
Yeah, but that's the point.
Anyways, I digress. Let's move on. Other news for, Phase 5. I guess this one would be more Phase 6. Fantastic Four casting possible.
Here we go.
And this one's interesting. I've never thought that this guy was really good looking, and to be honest, like in Star Wars, as soon as he took his mask off, it was really like underwhelming. And the person I'm talking about is Adam Driver.
So
he's a really weird looking dude.
So if you've ever seen, of course, the new Star Wars movies for like episode 7 through 9, Kylo Ren, right? So that's him. If you got to see his face, then you'll know who we're talking about. But the problem is with him is that, yes, Matt and I agree that he is not the most like attractive dude on the planet, right? It's just, unfortunately, he just looks the way he does. And, for me, when you're looking at a character, especially like comic books, he personally does not fit the bill. That's the reason why, when people were like, man, John Krasinski really could be that role. That's why when you looked at the character in the comics and him, that's pretty much who you could see.
And unfortunately, I think for John Krasinski, I think seriously for him, it was a one and done.
I know.
And I think that's really for him, that's really what it was. And I mean, I can see Adam Driver doing the character, but I think I could see him doing Doctor Doom, more than I could see him doing Mr. Fantastic,
because he plays that villain, in Star Wars.
Could he pull it off? I think he could. You give him that Marvel treatment, you cut his hair short, you give him the look.
I mean,
I think he can pull it off.
Even if you went back in time, for example, like you look at Tom Hiddleston, who plays Loki, right? So originally he wanted to be Thor originally, and then they told him, no, you should really be Loki. Now, granted, I can't even imagine if Loki, the one we know now, it would be Thor, or let's say vice versa. Like imagine Chris Hemsworth like being Loki. Like I can't see that personally. Like just looking back, but like even now, I agree. It's kind of like in that situation where I think Adam Driver would be a better villain in this movie than he would be like playing the hero. He's also the one thing I don't, and I'm sorry, but the reason why some things I don't like about him is very monotone. He has like certain.
He has a very deep voice.
Well, I get it, but it's very, it's not emotional. Like it can be to a point, but it's not enough to like make me want him to be the hero.
He is an excellent actor though, so I will give him that. Like he is an excellent actor, and I think he could pull it off. So I mean, we'll kind of leave it at that. Like it's not a set thing; it's just a rumor. Like from what I understand, this was a rumor, a few months ago, so it may not even be a thing. Like I have no idea. Because Marvel is so hush-hush with everything they do.
I mean, and at this point, we really, like a lot of these characters that we're going to mention.
They could pull off somebody off the street and be talking to them, who knows?
I mean, look at Tom Holland. He was a prime example.
Actually, talking about Tom Holland, kind of a side topic not related to Marvel. Do you know that he was actually in line for Finn? In Star Wars.
Oh.
He auditioned for Finn.
Really?
But I saw this in an interview, and it's a little side topic, I guess, but in the interview, he auditioned for Finn.
Right, who was played by John Boyega, yeah.
There was a lady who was doing BB-8 who was basically he was explaining, he walked into the audition and this lady was portraying like an android, basically one of the droids. And she was, they basically said, okay, like let's go ahead. And she was beep bop boop bop boop bop beep. And he just, I guess in the audition, he could not take it seriously, and all he could do is laugh.
When you did the beep bop boop bop beep.
But that's how he explained it.
I know, but the way you just said that, I don't know, it just threw me off a little bit. But it reminds me of SpongeBob a little bit with Krusty Krab. But that's a different topic. But I think with Tom Holland, again,
I could not see it. I mean,
no, I couldn't. I agree.
Not as Finn.
No, and I mean, no.
That would have just been weird. But anyways, I digress.
Yes, you do.
So some of the things I think we can kind of touch on real quick. Yeah, because we're getting close to that time there.
Oh, really? Because you were talking about something different. But go ahead.
So we got Guardians coming up pretty soon, and I don't know what you think of this, but what are the chances that you think Adam Warlock will actually be a villain in this movie?
Oh, 100%. He's gonna be a villain. Like
because I know the High Evolutionary is set to be the villain, and we know he's going to be the villain, but I don't think he's the main villain.
So here's a possibility, right? So I think High Evolutionary might be considered the main villain, and let's say that Adam probably starts out as a villain, and then maybe later on changes his.
See, I think it's the opposite. I think he starts out as more of a
good guy, and then going into bad.
A good guy helping to defeat the High Evolutionary. And then somehow, I don't know if you played Avengers. I think it's Avengers. Yeah. No, it's not. It's the Guardians. You didn't play Guardians.
No, I didn't play Guardians. No.
So in Guardians, Adam Warlock is in that game, and he becomes a villain.
I mean, and that's if they base it off of the game.
But it's not against the High Evolutionary.
Okay, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I do happen to think that a good chance he'll actually be a villain in that movie.
Well, then I guess here's another possibility. What are the chances you think Howard the Duck's coming back? Because I mean, a lot of people have been
very small.
Oh, excuse me. Why do you think very small? Because I think he'll make an appearance. If he made an appearance in both Guardians, you don't think he'd come back just like Cosmo?
Well, Cosmo's definitely in the movie, but Howard the Duck, no.
You know what? I believe in you, Howard. I think you're coming back at some point.
No.
Whatever.
All right. So, I think some of the villains, ones that we kind of know so far, obviously Kang.
Yeah.
We've seen MODOK. We know of the High Evolutionary. Ones that we know are coming back from Secret Wars is the Skrulls, right?
Yeah. I mean, then you'd also have to bring in the Kree.
Well, I didn't go that far, but we know that the Skrulls are at least going to be part of either 5 or 6. Adam Warlock, I put him in there because we don't know. But he was a pretty huge villain in Marvel. Like
what, Adam?
Adam Warlock, yeah. I mean, Galactus level villain.
Well, I mean, but yes, I mean, maybe at first, but then technically
he was a good character.
Yeah, I mean, but that was more when he got. Let me rephrase this. He was a good character at first, and then probably became bad because of the whole him taking the gauntlet from Thanos, and then him, in basically embedding his powers through the gauntlet, and we digress here, but yeah.
All right, so Galactus.
Well, yes. I mean, if he doesn't show up, then
if you have a Fantastic Four movie, you have to have Galactus.
Well, then Silver Surfer needs to come in too.
So the leader, Samuel Stearns, which we know now that Samuel Stearns is going to be in Captain America. General Ross, which again, rumored, but seeing Red Hulk would be amazing.
I mean, again, Harrison Ford. We'll see how well they do with the CGI because that's the only.
Well, honestly, I don't think Harrison Ford would be doing the Red Hulk action scenes, but
no, he won't. No, somebody else will. Yes,
Doctor Doom,
which that better be at some point.
Dracula, possibly Blade. I don't know.
So
it's a tricky one. Well, I put Dracula in there because I like him as a character.
So another one, which I know you and I have mentioned before, and I'm not trying to digress, but like I've heard a lot of theories too, and we agree that some of the theories on Marvel it will never, unfortunately, come to fruition. But like Mephisto, right? Or like certain.
I have him actually next, and he's rumored again. Like these are rumors, but I believe an actor has been casted for Mephisto in the show Agatha.
Yeah.
So
possibility.
It's Mephisto is a possibility for Agatha, which we could see Mephisto being in potentially other projects, or like Marvel has been doing. Basically, Mephisto will just be a vehicle to introduce somebody new.
Well, and hold on, because technically, in the end of Doctor Strange, like the newest one, he could be a big part of that at some point, because even with Agatha, but again, another storyline.
Right. So, I mean, the last kind of thing that I have is some of the things for Phase 5 and 6 that I'm kind of looking forward to, which one I already said was Blade. Another one is Daredevil Born Again.
So I'm just going to mention this. So yes, I'm really looking forward to Blade, but Daredevil, absolutely, especially because Charlie Cox and Wilson Fisk is coming back. The guy, I can't remember the name, but those original actors that played in the Netflix series, that's huge.
Of the Netflix shows, Daredevil was the only Netflix show that was actually any good.
Yes, I agree with you, because the others we don't really need to talk about, because
no, I mean Jessica Jones was terrible, and
Jessica. Oh, let me put it this way: Jessica Jones. It was.
If you didn't watch it, you didn't miss anything.
No, but it had a lot to do with like sexual different fantasies. It was bad.
It was bad.
Terrible.
It was bad. But some of the, I mean, I really had high hopes for the Punisher, and by the very last episode, it got to where I wanted it to go, and then it was canceled. And it was kind of like, really? He just got to where where I wanted him to go.
If John Bernthal, the guy who played Punisher, came back, abso-friggin-lutely.
And he is coming back. I just don't know. There is a project that he's going to be in.
In the MCU?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. I'm glad he's bringing him back. Yeah.
So he is coming back. I just don't know what the particular project is, if it's a Punisher show or if it's part of something. But
I pray to God.
So what if season 2? I find the show interesting. Like I said, I don't like every episode of What If.
Yeah, I mean,
but I find the show interesting. I think with the show, I really hope that they do another episode, or even hopefully a couple episodes, expanding on that Marvel Zombies.
I agree, and I would hope that with season 2, because originally it was season 1. I mean, with Doctor Strange, I mean, a lot of that material that they showed in some of the episodes, it became fruition in the actual movie, which was
Captain Carter, and
which was amazing. And I think that if they have a theme with this particular season 2, that could give us some insight into hopefully what could be next in Phase 5 for certain movies or certain things like that. So we'll see. Again, it's all of a, again, what if? It depends on what's going to happen.
And then the last one I have is, and you'll like this one, Captain America: New World Order, which...
Well, go ahead.
Sorry. Some of the rumors on this one is, I mean, it's basically almost an Incredible Hulk movie, John.
Well, I mean, yes, because unfortunately, like, you have all the original actors that played in the Incredible Hulk, which again would
you have Liv Tyler, Harrison Ford, and they're rumored to be casted as General Ross and Betty Ross,
right? And then Samuel Stearns.
You have Samuel Stearns, who is Tim Nelson, I don't know what the guy's name is,
but the leader.
But he's he's in the Incredible Hulk movie as Samuel Stearns, who technically is the leader in the Marvel universe.
Right. And I will admit that in that version of, that movie, the leader did not, he just looked weird on so many
He was
levels.
weird, yeah.
And because in the comics, he was actually this, like, he had a big head because he was really smart and whatnot, but he was also green. Like, he was because of, like, the gamma radiation and so forth. Like, he didn't, like, that piece, I really hope that if they do anything with, they need
But
to have him.
I mean, this is years after, so he could look like completely different by now.
And I really hope so.
But I think where you have these characters in there, I mean, you have to have the regular Hulk.
No,
And I think
yeah.
if you have General Ross, who potentially is going to be Red Hulk, you potentially could see Red Hulk kind of beat the Hulk out of Professor Hulk, which I'm seriously hoping for.
I mean, and I agree, because then hopefully, actually, it would be really interesting since we've already seen, She-Hulk. What if Scar comes into play? Like, what if he actually, like, finally, because of that, even that one little scene, what if he actually comes into play, like, in the movie, and actually doesn't hopefully look like the way he does? I would hope that maybe he changes a little bit, maybe with, like, longer hair, kind of like a barbaric look kind of thing. Maybe.
If he doesn't pull it, Dad.
Well, I mean, I agree. I mean, because he looked more like a teenager.
He looked like a weird, like, emo teenager.
Yeah, and I agree, but I would hope that maybe something comes out of it. But the one thing that you did mention in here, which I'll say really quick, Loki season 2 does also look very interesting because, you know, when we left off with He Who Remains, kind of with that cliffhanger, and not knowing what was going on with that,
Right.
I really want to see how they progress, because now that they know that there, is a all like these different timelines in general, like how does Loki move forward from that? You
And
know,
from what I understand, like there is a trailer for the show.
well, I mean,
And
yeah,
from what I understand and what I've read, they're basically trying to preserve what's left of that version of the TVA. That's from what I understand. So
yeah,
whatever remnant is left behind from that version of the TVA, they're trying to kind of rebuild that. So I season 1 and like I said before in previous episodes, like Loki season 1 out of all the other Marvel shows, like Loki was by far the better of the shows. So if season 2 is anything, it probably will be on par to be pretty good.
I would hope so, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it it all plays out, because honestly, with the MCU as of lately, um, with all the different phases and all the different movies that they're talking about and the TV shows, it kind of makes me wonder how the MCU is going to really kind of do that same thing as they did in the first three phases, because at the end of the day, with all these new characters and all these new, personalities and everything else, you know, honestly, the biggest thing that I'm more questioning is, how is the Kang dynasty, is it going to live up to, the expectations of Endgame, or is it going to, unfortunately, maybe crush our souls and our dreams of like what could have been, in that time frame? Which again, now all these movies that we've mentioned and TV shows, we it could change our minds completely. But I mean, for me, I really hope that they do an amazing job with all these characters, because if they don't, and we see, Kang Dynasty and the Secret Wars and all this other stuff, it's really going to be really hard for me to unfortunately want to continue to watch Marvel, because we've already seen these first three phases. We've already seen like the expectations of what they've done, but can they live up to the name? Because at the end of the day, when you look at, Marvel versus DC, DC unfortunately does not do a good job on the movie side of the house, but they do an excellent job on TV shows and animated series, things like that. But can they live up to that name, especially when Phase 6 is like right there? So, like, I'm hoping that they do a good job, because if they don't, it's really going to crush me. And I'm looking at a sign that that Matt gave me a while back. It's a Marvel sign, and I love that sign. But if they don't do a good job, I might have to get rid of that, buddy. I might have to sell it on eBay or something.
Yeah, but see, I mean, that sign has the characters that we've grown to love.
I agree.
And I think that's like that's the hardest part is like almost all of them that are shown there,
yeah, I mean,
aren't even in this phase. So it's really like we have to, and again, the research that I've done, the Russo brothers, who did Endgame. I don't know if they did Infinity War. I think they might have done.
No, they did. I'm pretty sure they did.
So they did the last, Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. They came out and basically had said like to fans like give Phase 5 time to grow, because it is like doing phase 1 all over again.
Right now, I would say Phase 4 was kind of like Phase 1 in certain aspects, but like Phase 5 is beginning to kind of do like a 1 and 2 kind of phase where they're still trying to introduce some more characters, but they're also trying to like correlate some of the stories together.
Yeah, they're trying to solidify that story. So really, I mean, it's kind of like that Phase 2 trying to. But the thing with Marvel, and this is like we've said it, I think the last episode, there's so many projects that they're doing all at the same time. It's really one of those tricky things where you look at Phase 1, 2, and 3, they didn't have all this going on.
No, and they because they only focused on the movies. They didn't focus on TV shows. They didn't focus on all these like different little side projects, which is great, but at the same time as the timeline, it causes more chaos, and it causes people to try to follow along as best as they can. And again, if you're not a comic book nerd who knows or at least has done research on some of this stuff, you're really not going to know, what is accurate and what is not. And I think that's the problem with, trying to get new fans is that, they've been trying to introduce like some of the newer comic book characters like America Chavez, um, Riri Williams, playing, Ironheart, and like some of these other ones that have been coming out, like Kamala Khan, and all these different ones. So it it's really hard for hardcore Marvel fans to unfortunately kind of get along with that because we're like what Matt was just saying, like we're so used to these main characters that are not in these movies now. So like Iron Man, Cap, Black Widow, Thor. Unfortunately Black Panther, and so many more. But like, there's so many characters that we've been so used to enjoying their time on the screen, and now they're gone, and now they've been replaced, or they've been doing other things now, and it's not the same.
Yeah, and I guess maybe a topic for another episode, and maybe we could do a separate episode. Is does Marvel need to do these big sagas?
Right. I mean, because and then realistically is, I agree that the TV shows make a great correlation to the movies and how they've done it so far, but can they do without? Can they make maybe make like a kind of like the Star Wars where they did like Han Solo and Kenobi and like have like little side stories that may kind of tie in a little bit, but they have their own timelines on different aspects of what's going on.
And that's, I think, the difference between Star Wars and Marvel is, Marvel is doing these like little short sagas where, yeah, I mean, they encompass what, 3 years?
Yeah.
But you look at Star Wars, I mean, from 77 and it's still ongoing.
Right. And I mean, granted, they're making shows like, the Clone Wars that ended a little bit ago, and like Bad Batch.
And you have to, you do have to insert them in different times. So now you have, instead of watching, episode 4 and going right to 5, now you have to watch this thing. And right, it does make it a little bit more complicated, but you get a complete story when they add in this.
But it also gives different perspectives on what the characters were doing during those times. So like, excuse me. Like one example was Black Widow, right? And now granted, I understand Matt didn't, agree with the movie, whatever. Okay, whatever. But, it did help a little bit on, the development of the character and actually understand the story behind her, because we didn't really know anything about Black Widow at the time. And some of these other characters, like this is where Matt and I agree. I really wish that they would have done like a Hulk movie, in between, like Thor Ragnarok and literally, um, you know, Age of Ultron, like in that time frame of like really what he was doing, and especially with, or even like with She-Hulk now, with the fact that Scar comes into play, like something needs to be there, because all of a sudden when you bring him in, it doesn't make
What did Hulk
sense.
do when he went there?
Right.
What did Hulk do when he first went to this planet? Like, we don't know those stories, and will we ever hear them? I don't know. But
that's for another episode. It's unfortunate.
Here we are, John. We're at the end.
You're right. Well, you know what? Since we're here, so again, we want to mention this, right? So we have partnered up with, Dubby as well as Reaper Apparel Co., right? And, when we look at these products, we look at things that are meaningful and as well as stuff that we actually believe in. So, like, it's funny, like, I actually have a Dubby drink out now. It's the Fruit Punch Dubby energy replacement. And honestly, it's one of it's not a bad flavor, but honestly, some of the other ones, I haven't tried yet, but I'm telling you, it's a good product. Like I said, we've talked to people about, the product, and we made sure that it was a good product to begin with, and it actually is. It's not just, some BS that we're just selling to people or whatever. So we don't really get a commission unless, again, you use our code, which is GFTM23. So with that being said, for Debbie, it's www.debbie.gg. Okay, and you can get like cool swag there too. There's some different merch there as well. If you use our code, again, it's going to be helpful. And also, real quick, Instagram also has our link in with all of our. Oh, sorry, Linktree. My bad, not LinkedIn. So Linktree with all of our links. So Matt, because I actually don't know a whole lot about that, you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so if you go to our Instagram, there's a Linktree link that you can click on, and it has basically all of our links in one singular place. So you can click on the W link, you can click on, I believe, the Reaper Co. link, and it'll bring you directly to those pages.
And I want to mention this too, if you don't already know, Reaper Co. is also the same 10% discount code that we have. It's the GFTM23, right? Okay.
Yeah. So it'll bring you also to our like Facebook. It'll bring you to the Instagram. It'll bring you to our website. Like, all of our links are in one place.
And again, when it comes to our website, if you don't already know this, it's www.geeksfromthemultiverse.com. And again, leave us a message. Let us know how we're doing. Maybe give us, some future ideas, because again, Matt has this giant list, which I'm appreciative of, but at some point we're really going to need to have people, let us know some more ideas that maybe we can talk about. And again, as always,
one thing about the website.
Just kidding.
We did add a page for our geeky shorts. So if you haven't gone on the page, there will be geeky shorts on our website that you are not going to see anywhere else.
So now these could be different topics. It could be different, little skits that we do. I mean, we just did one that was dad jokes. So again, that one, has it already posted?
It's going to go up pretty soon. I haven't put it together yet, but it will be going up pretty soon. But like I said, there's going to be ones that are going to go directly to the website. So you're going to want to check it out. Most of them you will probably see on Facebook or Instagram. They're going to be, episode preview, like little shorts from our episodes and stuff like that. But we're going to be doing a lot of those geeky shorts that are not going to be from episodes, and you're only going to be able to see them on the website.
Right. And it's just, it kind of gives you an idea of who we are. Now, we're not going to be like, talking about, explicit things, but, we try to have fun with it. We're not just trying to be like, stand up like, oh, robotic, whatever. But since we are at the end, Matt, we want to thank you guys for listening and supporting us. And always, until next time,
stay geeky.